Hello, world. Welcome to the first edition of the live Behold Pop Culture Show. I'm your host, Messiah, and this is my first time around the block trying to do a live stream version of the show. This is my first live stream in general, so I appreciate anyone who takes the time to listen to these humble beginnings as I start my journey as a streamer. If you are new to Behold Pop Culture, just to give you a quick description of what it is, myself and the people around the world love to enjoy different types of cultures: sports, film, music, gaming, just to name a few. But sometimes our lives get a bit too busy to keep up with all of them. And that's why Behold Pop Culture was born. This is a show where I take the time to make sure that you're never missing out on the major cultural events that are taking place across these different niches that people love interacting with every single week. But now we're experimenting a little bit, shifting the show to a daily version where every day, Monday through Friday, I'd like to come on stream and talk with you about some major topic that's taking place. If you stick with me for 30 minutes to an hour, I can make sure that you understand why these things are significant and exactly what are the talking points in case you end up in a discussion about these things, maybe at work, with a friend, or a family member. So I appreciate you taking out the time to join me on this journey. And for today's episode, we have a major topic. The last time I got a chance to speak to you all was about 3 weeks ago when I wrapped up the year with the top sports moments of the year, the top music moments of the year, and the top film moments of the year. But in that time span, since the last time I recorded a Behold Pop Culture show, so many different events were taking place. We had the Anthony Joshua fight with Jake Paul, where he seemed to play with him for 4, 5, 6 rounds and then delivered the knockout blow, literally breaking his jaw. We had the topic for this stream today, the return of Behold Pop Culture, Marty Supreme, possibly the movie event of the year, not in the actual performance, because we know that Sinners, one battle after another. There were other major events. Wicked for Good was likely the biggest movie event of the year, but Marty Supreme had the most interesting, to me, rollout for a film, because Timothy Chalamet went above and beyond to get seats filled in theaters to see what I believe was his best acting performance so far. So without further ado, I will dive into today's episode where our topic is Marty Supreme actually a good movie? Now, if you're not familiar, Marty Supreme is the story of a Jewish ping pong player, a actual ping pong player named Marty Mauser, who embarks on a journey of becoming the best ping pong player in the world. And this character is portrayed by Timothy Chalamet, who has become Hollywood's new it factor, the new guy on the block that has all the juice. All the movie studios seem like they want to get this guy's face in their movies. Excuse me as I take my sips of water as I'm getting used to streaming live. But Timothy Chalamet is the guy right now in Hollywood. And it began with him getting a role in Call Me By Your Name and stunning with what ended up being a very well received movie. But he went on to take lead roles: Wonka, Dune, and now Marty Supreme being the major three that people recall on his resume. But now, Marty Supreme was a bit of a venture beyond what we're typically used to from Timothy Chalamet, because this was the role that required the most of him displaying a wide array of emotions, from rage to pure, unadulterated joy, all the way down to absolute disappointment, sadness, as well as fear. With him showing that array of emotions, naturally, you're going to get a performance for the record books. But before we dive into what actually takes place in the movie, we have to take a look at what made this movie so eventful, which is every single piece that preceded it. First of which being, this is a Josh Safdie directed and written movie. If you're not familiar with his work, he is the second of two Safdie brothers who rose quickly into superstardom with the movie Uncut Gems, where Adam Sandler came forth and delivered maybe the best acting performance of his career across from Lakeith Stanfield and Kevin Garnett. He played a jeweler who was a degenerate gambler who could not stop chasing that rush of potentially hitting the biggest bet of his life. The movie felt like it was fast paced, like you were right there alongside him as you were chasing the thrill of hitting a major bet. And the conclusion of the movie is one of the best twists that you'll find out today. But that movie garnered so much acclaim, so much Oscar attention from people saying this absolutely is one of the best portrayals of the gambling lifestyle and the best opportunity Adam Sandler had had in a while to portray his acting ability. But that comes from the lens of the Safdie brothers, Benny and Josh Safdie, two of which took the time to cultivate the Uncut Gem story over many years. It wasn't as if they just woke up and decided to make greatness. Now, when you put that to the side, that they established that they could produce something so great, what we come to today is the two of them split and decided they wanted to see on both sides whether the juice was from them working together or if individually they could take their own visions and bring success from them. For Benny Safdie, he went and created the movie The Smashing Machine with The Rock, the story of a UFC fighter who's one of the most influential in that realm, and how he took the time to make sure that he was absolutely destroying his enemies. And that comes not only from the mentality that he approached it with, but also from him taking the time to work out more than every other fighter that he was facing. And unfortunately, that came at the risk of him using performance enhancing drugs that destroyed his life from the inside out. And Benny Safdie chose to explore the ways in which that came about through using The Rock as his muse. Similar to Adam Sandler, in my opinion, The Rock delivered the performance of his career, but unfortunately, some of the direction for the movie didn't land as emotionally as some of the Safdie brothers' work now as I look at them as a total body of work. Then we get to Josh Safdie. As the question loomed, could he deliver the juice? Is it him that's actually the one with the eye that could create these great stories that come to the big screen? So for Marty Supreme, the path that he chose to go down was to instead depict the story of a more fictional character. Yes, Marty Mauser is a real ping pong player, but Josh took a lot of liberties in deciding how exactly he wanted to portray his story. And that meant some of the wildest hijinks that you could find. In addition to that, he landed a cast of actors that I was surprised every time they stepped onto the screen because it was seemingly a cast of people who you think would never have even met each other, but displayed so much chemistry on the screen. From Timothy taking the lead role to Gwyneth Paltrow, who has such a decorated career in acting from many, many years, to Tyler, the Creator, having his first major debut acting on the big screen, to Kevin O'Leary, who we know from Shark Tank. Such a strange cast, but it seems to be a theme, as like I mentioned, in Uncut Gems, we had Adam Sandler, we had Lakeith Stanfield, and Kevin Garnett driving that story along. I'm just gonna leave my water here. So we get to Marty Supreme, where Josh Safdie decides that he wants to take this liberty and make a more riveting story, one that's about a degenerate that's even lower potentially than Adam Sandler, because this guy is willing to absolutely destroy his enemies and take advantage of his friends in order to get there in many different ways. For Adam Sandler, he seemed more self destructive in Uncut Gems, but the war path that Marty Supreme stepped down was the likes of which I hadn't seen in a very long time in a film. So as they promoted the movie, it seemed like it was more about the ping pong. The Safdie brothers clearly have an eye for athletes or for people who have that hunger to rule the world, to be the best at something, whether that's portrayed from a gambler or from an athlete. So as they started the promotion, it was about ping pong. Timothy Chalamet is playing a character, Marty Supreme, who wants to be the best ping pong player in the world. And they even went as far as to make the promotion include these orange ping pong balls, where in the trailer for the movie, the way they portrayed it was Timothy Chalamet was going to change the world of ping pong as Marty Supreme. For years, we had the white ping pong ball, but when players would wear a white shirt, it would be difficult to see it. So the shtick that was being promoted in trailers and advertisements was that he was going to come with this orange ping pong ball that would be easier to see and better for these players to perform. So that's how it started. And I naturally was intrigued because Timothy Chalamet had so much behind him in the industry that I doubted he would take a project where he wouldn't shine as an actor. But then things took a turn. As the month approached for the movie to be released, Timothy Chalamet seemed to take a complete 180 and grasp the advertisements for himself and decide to go and take a hard left. Instead of the traditional, typical, you go on your network television, you do an interview. Oh, I love the process of making this movie. I thought that it would be a great opportunity to work with a great filmmaker. Instead, he chose the more Gen Z path, which is you have to garner attention by any means necessary. And the way that he did that was to embrace a part of him that we've known has existed, but one that hasn't shone this brightly in a while, which is that Timothy Chalamet is still at heart a kid from New York who has been heavily influenced by New York culture. And what that means is his press run for this movie began with him going to Brazil and coming out doing the Soldier Boy Crank That dance to the song as his intro before doing an interview. Naturally, that went viral. Then he decided to go with Drewski to New York and have a actual Could Have Been Records audition where Drewski did his typical thing. He has funny characters wait in line, come and audition for his fictional record label. Timothy Chalamet participates. This time he's at the door deciding who is going to be welcomed into this and is again displaying his New York roots when he comes onto the show and the way that he talks, his dialect, his natural language. He's showing his roots are very cultured, and in particularly, his roots are connected to hip hop culture and streetwear culture, which is shown in the actual fashion that he chooses to wear. It took an even further turn, and at this point, he seems to be completely separating himself from the rest of the cast when he goes and addresses a rumor that had been looming more in the Twitter X streets, but nothing that was concrete, nothing that typical movie fans would have been heavily invested in finding out, which is that there's this character, a rapper from Liverpool named SD Kid. And this character covers his face. All you can see is his eyes. And because his height seems similar to Timothy Chalamet, his fashion seemed similar to Timothy Chalamet, there was rumors that loomed that SD Kid is secretly Timothy Chalamet posing as a rapper. Of course, there's no way for him to be in two places at once. And naturally, this was just fans having fun. But again, someone who's from this generation, someone who understands internet culture, the way that he leveraged this to become an ad for Marty Supreme is he went and did a verse on SD Kid's song For Raws and is actually rapping for over a minute straight. And he naturally wove in Marty Supreme in multiple different lyrics for the song. So Timothy Chalamet leveraged every single aspect of the culture that he grew up around and a culture that he seemed to have a real understanding of to build mystique and intrigue for Marty Supreme. It was just as much about people being interested in all these crazy events that Timothy Chalamet was participating in as much as people were interested in actually seeing the movie. Now, cinephiles, people who are deep in the film streets, were waiting in line and already had their tickets ready to go see this movie. And they were rewarded in many cases because Timothy and Josh Safdie were popping up at different premieres as the movie was starting to roll out prior to its Christmas release date. Unfortunately, I wasn't able to be a part of that, but there was a lot of excitement that was building as we approached the Marty Supreme release date on Christmas. And when it finally came, I was able to take my behold pop culture eyes and see it for myself and come to my own conclusion. Timothy had built up the hype. He got me in the seat and thousands of other people into seats to see this movie. What is it actually going to be about? And like I said, initially I thought it was going to be a ping pong movie, something about Timothy trying to rise to the top. But what I got was something so very different. And I have to announce a spoiler alert here because I have to address specific parts of the story to get into answering the core question of this stream. Is Marty Supreme actually a good movie? And the movie starts with Marty. He's working at a shoe store. Clearly, some type of family relationship got him the job, but he has zero desire to stay there. Every single minute that he's working there, his desire is to become the number one ping pong player in the world. And it just so happens that he's actually talented enough to get there. He's thinking, he's manifesting, he's telling the people around him, I'm going to compete in the world tournament to become the number one ping pong player in the world. You might as well start kissing up to me now because in a week, I'm coming back to America a champion for a sport that is one of the fastest growing sports in the world. Marty naturally had to have that narcissistic energy as he was going there, as every athlete should when you're pursuing that level of greatness. You need that motivation, you need to have that belief in yourself. But not much more than 20 minutes into the movie, we get to a point where he loses on the biggest stage to the Japanese competitor who, mind you, this movie is taking place right after World War II, the post World War II era, and Japan needed a win badly. They had suffered such a major defeat on the world stage in that war that the champion, the person that they sent, their best ping pong player, goes forth and defeats the big loudmouth American Timothy Chalamet on the biggest stage. He comes home to Japan a hero, champion, despite being but a humble man from clearly humble beginnings. In fact, he is deaf from an accident that happened amidst this war. So out the gate, my question is immediately, there's 2 hours left in this movie. Are we about to rise a man? Are we about to watch a man rise from the depths of loss on the biggest stage to a champion again? And as I anticipated that, what we got instead of what I anticipated was a man who was chaotically destroying the lives of the people around him on that pursuit to reach that height once again. Once in the case of a woman who he got pregnant, who would eventually need to be giving birth to this child despite Marty having any type of real stream of income because he gave up his job to go pursue ping pong. He was going around the world with the Harlem Globetrotters just to make a buck and clearly regretting being in that position, knowing that he was just this close to being champion of the world. He convinces Tyler, the creator, to get into mischievous activities with him, scamming people to get more money so that he can make it back to the world tournament. And scene after scene after scene, storyline after storyline, Marty Supreme is finding ways to get people roped up in his harebrained schemes to get back to the world stage. So as we go throughout the movie, I'm watching and wondering, what is the takeaway? We're watching someone who many people who watch the film will agree is not a good person. This is someone who has that same taste that comes with the American dream. When we look at the origin of that, why did so many people come to America? Yes, there were unstable situations in different countries, but what America was portraying to the world was this was the land of hopes and dreams, the land where you could come to as someone with no money and become one of the richest men or women in the world. And that American dream has decidedly inspired generations of people to come up believing that you need to do everything you can to take advantage of that opportunity because there are many countries and cities across the world where that is not the case. No matter how hard you work in some of these other countries, there is a artificial glass ceiling that you cannot break through. So naturally, characters, real people like Marty Supreme will do everything they can to seize an opportunity when they have the chance. Clearly, for Marty, he had the ping pong ability to reach that height. And the fact that he wasn't there was eating him alive day by day, second by second. Even to the likes of which of him to the likes of him vocally abusing his mother, his friends, his family, anyone who would step into his way. So when we come back to ask the question, is Marty Supreme good? We have to start with rooting it in what is it like to watch a character unravel in this way? Does this make for good cinema? When we look historically at the movies that tend to get the best responses, it usually comes at the foot of a fractured, broken, challenged protagonist. And that's what we got here with Marty Supreme. And similar to the way that I described Uncut Gems, pushing you to be right along for the ride, going 100 miles per hour as you're watching the movie, Marty Supreme challenges you to do the same thing. Because again, every single scene, 1 second, Marty is running from the police. The next second, he's robbing his own family. The next second, he's competing in ping pong, trying to win a couple of dollars. There's so many things unraveling that you need to make sure you got a good night's rest before you watch this film. But naturally, what makes a great film is taking risks like this. When I go to the movies, I want to see something that I have not seen before. Or if you're going to give me something that I have seen before, it has to be stylized in a way that makes me feel like it's new. I've seen the Spider-Man story a million times, but every time they reboot it, I want to see a different portrayal of him, maybe some more personality. Maybe in the most recent case, now we have the Spider-Man with all this technology. Something has to be shifting to make it feel fresh. And with this movie, this is one of the freshest portrayals I've seen of a sports character in years. You think about any of the great sports movies that you can recall, or Remember the Titans, or you might think of, for example, The Smashing Machine more recently. These typically follow the theme of athlete is chasing greatness. They have some major accomplishment that's in front of them that they want to reach. They're going to have some type of friction with family and friends, but usually it's maybe them not paying them enough attention, or potentially in the movie Him, for example, they need to make more sacrifices than their family is expecting them to. But in this case, we're seeing someone directly lie to people in their faces, and they know. There's scenes where Tyler, the creator, is looking Timothy right in his eyes and telling him, Marty, I know what you are. I know that you will scam me, but I will willingly participate anyway and hope that this time around we end up on the right side of it. And lo and behold, he doesn't. So we go through and watch this man fail and fail and fail again. And then we get to the end of the movie. And somehow all of these different scams come together. He puts enough money in his pocket. He decides that he needs to get on his hands and knees and pray and ask for a request from a wealthy millionaire to get him to where the competition is going to be, the next world tournament. He goes and gets an opportunity to rematch against the player from Japan, the champion of the world, the best ping pong player in the world. And in front of them, he's asked to throw the match because this world tournament is taking place in Japan. And he's asked to not potentially embarrass the champion of the world in front of his people. So he throws the match. And as he's stepping up to now accept his defeat, that piece of his brain starts ringing. And he thinks again about everything that he sacrificed to get here. It seemed like you could look into Timothy's eyes and resonate with him, understanding that everything that he did throughout this movie, everything he did to ruin other people's lives on his path to arrive in Japan, the other side of the world, he now has an opportunity to play against the best ping pong player in the world once again and potentially win. He grabs the mic and tells everyone that it was a sham, that he faked the loss. And he asked this ping pong player, the champion of the world, once again, will you play me? Will you play me? Fair match, no rigging. Let's see who's actually the best. And what unveils, what unfolds is naturally he accepts his challenge. And we see one of the best sports scenes in recent history as they go back and forth, back and forth. And it's deafening watching as Timothy is giving everything he's got for this chance. It's like you're seeing a child's dream realized. Imagine from the age of 2, 3, 4, 5. We don't even see his origin, but I can feel it in his acting. You have this dream to be the best in the world. And finally, that dream is staring you right in your face. You have a chance to actually accomplish it. The desperation was unbelievable. It was a level of aura and gravity around him that came and popped off the screen. And he competed back and forth, point after point, until he got to that moment where he was 1 point away from proving he beat the best in the world. And with all eyes on him, with his dreams one swing of the ping pong paddle away, he accomplished it. He wins and defeats the best ping pong player on planet Earth. He collapses, and you could see the euphoria in his face. Unfortunately, because this took place at an event where he was supposed to throw it, he's banned from the actual world tournament. So it's not as if he's going to be recognized by the council as the best ping pong player in the world. This was strictly for his own ego, following along the theme of this narcissistic character who only cared about his own fulfillment. So in the end, he got what he wanted. He beat the best ping pong player in the world, and him in his heart of hearts can be that guy at 50, 60 years old who's telling his grandchildren, hey, I was someone who was the best ping pong player in the world technically way back in the day. That's like, we know that there are definitely people who are telling their kids, I beat Michael Jordan back in the day, or I hit on this pitcher. I was someone who scored a touchdown against this player in football, so on and so forth. There are always these stories of people whose lives intersected with the greatest athletes, actors, entertainers, etc. of all time, who have that story that they hold in their back pocket. And we watched as Marty Supreme went from someone who could have been that guy who you tell the story about how you interacted with them to being the guy who just has that story in his back pocket to tell you about once upon a time what he accomplished. It was an amazing story. And as it unraveled, I continued to ask myself, is this a good movie? And when I look at the fact that we got the fractured protagonist, we got a 2-hour, 30-minute journey with him. We got to see his highest highs, his lowest lows, and in my opinion, the best acting of Timothée Chalamet's career. In fact, it was so good an acting job, despite the list that I put together for my top 10 films of 2025, I have to give this the best performance of 2025. And I think that he should win the Oscar for Best Actor in a couple months. So we have the best actor. We have this iconic director who I have to say he proved from these two movies that he's the superior director between himself and his brother. Great actor, great brother. Was the cast good? Yes. Every actor showed up to work locked in for this movie and put on great performances. The only person that I even had somewhat of a critique for was Tyler, the Creator, because it felt like he was naturally the charismatic version of Tyler, the Creator. It didn't feel like he had to push himself too far to become this character. And that might just be what Josh Safdie's vision was for his character, because he did pop off the screen in his charisma. And naturally, the way that he was interacting with Marty Supreme was one of the best duos. It felt like a buddy cop movie unraveling in just maybe 15 to 30 minutes of film. So as I put all these pieces together, did I think that this was the best movie of 2025? No. I'm giving that award to One Battle After Another, and I think that that movie should win Best Picture. But was it good? There's no way that I can say that it has all those things going for it and not consider Marty Supreme to be a good movie. That was a phenomenal experience, and I can't wait to see what Timothy does with Dune 3. I'm hoping that he can push himself to be as good of an actor in Dune 3 as he was in Marty Supreme. So that brings us to the conclusion of that question. Is Marty Supreme good? Yes. Marty Supreme was a great movie. I gave it 4 out of 5 stars. I think that it's definitely worth seeing if you consider yourself a film fan. And it was such an interesting rollout, as I mentioned, with Timothy Chalamet doing all of these sort of guerrilla marketing tactics to get attention on him, that just saying that you've seen it or having an opinion on it might give you some style points or cool points with people that you discuss it with. This was most recently the movie that most people were at least consciously aware of and curious about what it was even about. And the fact that even I, who was invested in the campaign, got sort of blindsided by what actually unfolded in the movie shows that there's a lot to discuss from the ping pong to Timothy Chalamet's career so far as an actor. But with that being said, I want to figure out the best format for the stream. I know that for this so far, we are about 30 minutes into the stream. I was able to talk about Marty Supreme a little bit more extensively. What I'm thinking for the structure of this going forward is I can pick a topic like Marty Supreme and do my full thoughts on it and publish that as an episode of the podcast. And rather than feeling like you need to watch one Behold Pop Culture episode and get all of the different things that are taking place, it'll be a little bit easier if I potentially post 5 episodes out of the week. And maybe you want to watch this episode on Marty Supreme, but you don't have time for hearing about what's going on in the basketball world or hearing about what's going on with the next album drop. You can just come to this, listen to this, and feel like you're confident in having some discussion points from Marty Supreme. So that would, in theory, be sort of conclusive to this episode. But naturally, with this now being a live stream, there are a few more things that I can do with this that I wasn't able to do with editing. And as I'm playing around with this being my first one and trying to figure out what format I think will work best, I thought a good opportunity to leverage having the stream as now an asset of mine is I can watch and react to things live on the stream and potentially do it in a way where hopefully it actually is valuable as I get used to reacting to things as I didn't do that in my editing form. So for today, something I thought would be interesting would be to first watch the Marty Supreme trailer and kind of talk through my thoughts as different scenes pop up. And after that, we can go into the trailer for the Odyssey, which I think is one of the most anticipated movies coming up for this year. Possibly number one, if it wasn't for what I want to do after that, which is react to the 3 trailers that have come out so far for Avengers Doomsday, which I believe will end up being the highest selling movie of this year. And if they execute it right, Endgame was a tough peak to grasp and deal with, and it was one of those once in a lifetime moments. But I don't know that it will ever be eclipsed in how much money that movie garnered. But Doomsday can be up there. So far, what they've revealed is enough for people to get back in the theater and get back on board with what Marvel's doing specifically for the Avengers series. So, what I'm going to do now is put on my headphones and just watch these things and get a feel for what I think might be the best form for potentially reacting to these on stream. Bonus content, a post Behold Pop Culture live, if you will. Okay, let's see if I can get this to work. Okay. Boom. Think everything should be live now as I'm working out the kinks for this. But if I put this into full screen, you should be able to now see what I'm seeing. Test the volume for it.
I haven't cooked this.
Turn down the volume for it.
Okay.
Boom. Okay. So we're going to test this together live as I go and play this trailer. I'm going to pause intermittently and just share some of my thoughts on what I was thinking when I was watching the movie. So this is the Marty Supreme trailer that has the most views on YouTube.
Let me ask you something. Do you make money at this little table tennis thing?
Not yet.
Do you have a job?
No.
So you can see from here, the way that, like I mentioned, they portrayed this movie was as if it was a ping pong film. You see that he clearly in that scene was telling Gwyneth Paltrow, I don't have a job. My job is to become the best ping pong player in the world. And again, this resonates with sort of the theme that I mentioned of how in American culture, we tend to worship someone who is pursuing that greatness, even if it comes at the cost of the people around them. When, as long as you end up winning a championship, people are willing to forgive a lot, especially if it's for their team or especially if they're a massive fan of you. And this character in real life, who his name was Marty Reisman, he was known as a hustler, showman, ping pong player. So for Josh Safdie to come and take that and turn that into the story of the pursuit of greatness was just an interesting twist on that thinking. A hustler using that hustle instead of just making another buck to become the greatest at something. And ping pong is a niche sport to even be exploring that type of theme with. It's sort of like a whole pop culture, taking a microculture and finding a way to turn it mainstream. Ping pong being one of those things that is more of a niche sport. Not as many people watch it and are following it live, but the movie made it pop culturally relevant, as people at least can tell from even watching a couple games that table tennis is a sport that requires a high level of skill to be good at. And that's why we've seen the rise of other things, chess, F1, pickleball. Those type of sports can become cool when we figure out how to tell the stories around them and make these microcultures pop culturally relevant.
Backhand, forehand.
How do you live?
Well, I live with the confidence if I believe in myself, the money will follow.
And what do you plan to do if this whole dream of yours doesn't work
That
out?
doesn't even enter my consciousness.
That's the type of mentality that he had to have in the film to win. I can't even let the concept of losing enter my mind. Everything I do, everything I focus on has to be, how do I win? And that's what made it sort of anxiety inducing as you watch the film, because you know every time he's doing these things that are ruining the lives of the people around him, it's always at the helm, at the cost, at the need that he has in his heart to become the best in the world. It's like a pressure cooker as everything unfolds. And naturally, there's a level of swagger that he has to him that makes him charismatic and makes characters, like I mentioned, look him in the eye and know what he's about to do to them, but still allow him to do it anyway. There's a certain charisma that comes with that culture of chasing and being the best and people wanting to be in your orbit when you're chasing greatness.
Maybe it should.
There's no turning back.
Everything in my life's falling apart, but I'm gonna figure it out.
If you need help, I can help you.
You want to go hustling again?
Put your money where your mouth.
Tyler, the creator. He's telling him, you could hear in the scene, you want to go hustling again. He knows what it is. He knows what he's getting into. And they put together a hustle. And of course, things take a turn in that hustle. But Tyler, the creator, he naturally has a, I would say, louder personality, one that works well on the big screen. When he reacts to things, when he has moments of high emotion, he's been doing that not only when he made smaller films with his group Odd Future in the past, and not only when he's done music videos, but his actual music, he'll scream on a song and it will be normal. No Tyler the Creator fan will be surprised by that. So that actually translated perfectly for what the film asked of him.
176, 177, 178. The mouse is back, baby. Yeah.
Welcome to your life.
Marty.
I can't support your mother.
Welcome
Show this one more time.
Marty.
I can't.
You can see right here all the trophies on the wall. This was not even something that was highlighted in the film. Things get so focused in the writing of the movie about all the things that go wrong in his pursuit that we don't even touch on how great of a ping pong player he was for that much of the movie. We see in the beginning him reach the championship and lose, and that tells us everything we need to know that he's that level. He's good enough to be the best in the world, or at least top 2. That tells us everything we want to know about how good he is. And Safdie took the leap of saying, that's enough. I don't need to speak anymore. I don't need to tell you about how he won this many tournaments. I don't need to tell you how he's this ranked player. He accomplished this. He was training 10 hours a day. They don't tell us anything else about his pursuit with ping pong. They just show us how good he was competing. And the next time we see him compete is when he goes back to Japan to potentially compete for the world championship.
Support your mother.
But he has to go home when things fail. When he loses on the big stage, there's no money for the loser. There's nothing for him to go back to. He goes and travels the world with the Globetrotters to make a couple bucks as a halftime show, playing with a friend, playing against a seal, just a laughing stock in his eyes. And once that ends, he comes back home to do it all again.
You're not gonna have to, because I'm gonna step up.
Step up
I'm gonna
how?
step up in a way you can't even imagine.
Marty, I'm gonna make you an offer.
I gotta do it completely on my own.
This Kevin O'Leary character ended up being extremely important in the film because he represented someone who is a businessman who has money and fell for Marty's spell in that Marty convinced him how big ping pong was going to be. He pretty much had no knowledge of how much it was growing, and he would end up being someone who was essential in funding Marty's dreams to potentially become the best again.
Marty, I'm gonna make you an offer.
I gotta do it completely on my own.
It's every man for himself where I come from.
Another lesser focused on storylines because he's from New York, because he's part of this American culture, he believes that he has to do it on his own. And that's why in the end, when he's playing all of these people and it doesn't work out, he becomes the most humble he's ever been. He gets on his hands and knees begging for an opportunity and realizes that he can't do it alone. And that's a huge moment because you see someone who, for 2 hours, you see his ego get inflated to the maximum amount and him pretty much rarely throughout that 2 hours give up on that. You see him just take his ego and squash it just for a chance once again.
That's how I grew up.
Hey, what are you doing?
I don't think you understand the stakes here. You find that funny?
I get nervous laughter sometimes.
My eyes broke, or is that mouse, baby?
Thank you so much. You're my pop. We believe in you.
Another character who believes in him. Everyone gets drawn into his charisma. They believe in his dream. This is how powerful your dreams can be. When you're willing to commit this much, people are willing to potentially look you in your face and have you do them dirty. It's unreal, and it's almost a dreamlike portrayal of this type of pursuit. But the reality is, even though it seems like they took this concept and stretched it and exaggerated it, it's realistic. We've seen it happen in multiple different forms. And that's why we see several years down the line, stories of these people that will make you think that they're crazy. Michael Jordan punched Steve Kerr in the face. Do you think that anyone went and fought Michael Jordan after that? They said, no, this guy's going to win us a championship, so they let it go. Steve Kerr let it go. That's how gravitational and difficult to break out of that orbit it is when someone is on that level of greatness. But again, making the decision to portray that for someone who was a hustler, who didn't even win on the biggest stage, is what made this such an interesting story to portray. And it gave Timothée Chalamet that room to craft the character and ultimately give the performance of a lifetime. His inner monologue of ambition keeps you locked into the movie every single second of it. And just like that, it's already, in my opinion, become a pop cultural moment. It's stapled, it's stamped. It's going to be remembered, especially if he goes and wins the Oscar for it, like I believe he should.
Hey, I'll rip that unibrow right off his forehead!
You want to get physical? Like an ape?
Come on, he's right here!
Have you ever thought about what you're doing to me?
Give us our money! When they do love you right.
They just showed you about 30 different scenes of chaos. Large bags of money, a woman crying, needing him. That's the woman who eventually he gets pregnant. People getting shot, houses getting driven through by a car. That's just to give you a snapshot of how many crazy events take place in this movie.
And it's only a matter of time before I'm staring at you from the cover of a Wheaties box.
The campaign that they went with on the posters was Dream Big. And again, like I mentioned, that's the storyline. How big are you willing to dream, and how much are you willing to sacrifice to achieve that dream by any means necessary? You can see here, this is the portrayal of him after he lost, the American who fell at the hand of the Japanese victor. At the end of the day, he dared to dream big. It costed him everything, but he accomplished what he wanted to accomplish. At what cost? That's where you walk out of the movie theater having to decide for yourself.
You think it's that simple?
Yeah, I do.
This is my plan, this is my plan!
There it is. That was, in my opinion, the best performance of the year. Him and Tyler, one of the best duos of the year. And ultimately a movie that I wouldn't be surprised if it gets nominated for Best Picture, but I would be surprised if it won. With that, we can move on to the next trailer. We can depart from the Marty Supreme talk. I hope that I was clear in that as I get used to talking about it in this stream form. It's a little bit more long-winded than what I typically did on Behold Pop Culture, but potentially more valuable as I can share more of my perspective on it. And hopefully you get a takeaway beyond just the movie's good. Hopefully it kind of sparks some thoughts about what you think about yourself or people around you pursuing greatness, what that comes at the cost of, and whether or not we need to see more stories with this fractured of a protagonist, or if this is just a good one-off. I'd love to hear your opinion on that. Now, what I believe has a good chance to be the number 2 event of the year in film for 2026. And it'll be closely competing with Dune, which we haven't got a trailer for. I will be staying tuned for that as well. But a little movie by a story that millions of people have experienced, whether it was through school, having to read the book, or from simply having to, as I make this available for you, simply having to find a way to interpret. Oh, Add this. Hold on one. As I try to share this with you. There we go. As I was saying, The Odyssey, a story that millions of people have had to read the book. It's a story that many people are familiar with, the story of a man just trying to get home, the odyssey he embarks on to get home to his wife. But what we have here is arguably the greatest director of all time, someone who at least is in the conversation, Christopher Nolan, returns. The last time we saw him, he was sweeping up the Oscars with the movie Oppenheimer. Star-studded cast, iconic story of the man who believes he became the destroyer of worlds, the man who made the atom bomb, Oppenheimer. That movie was one of the best movies I've ever seen. And Nolan, as far as I'm concerned, has never missed. And it deserved every Oscar that it won. But he returns again, a star-studded cast for a story that's iconic, a story that many people are familiar with. Can he execute it once again? Let's find out together. Look at the cinematography. There's something about the Nolan films that feels so textured, so stylized. I don't even know where this scene is taking place, but you could tell desolation, war, potentially a memorial for the people who lost their lives here. I'm already excited off of this scene. Costume design, stellar. I mean, look at this helmet. I feel like I'm immersed in the world already.
After years of war,
one of the best actors ever, Matt Damon, in a serious role, an aged Matt Damon, who, from my understanding, he'll be playing Odysseus. Yeah, this will be very interesting for him. Potentially an opportunity for Matt Damon to win an Oscar. He's someone who has played several characters who were worthy of being nominated. He's someone who's done some more calm roles, but when you team up with Christopher Nolan, everything is on the table, especially when we look at the people who'll be acting across from. And The Odyssey, I mean, whoever you casted to be in this role was going to have a chance to win an Oscar anyway. So it's great to see they picked an actor who I'm confident can portray Odysseus correctly.
no one could stand between my men. And home.
Tom Holland, Spider-Man, the heir to Stark Industries. I need to see him not be Peter Parker. I need to see if I'm ready to put Tom Holland in the list of young actors who I believe have the talent to become superstars. I do not believe he's there yet. I don't think just off of Spider-Man you can be in that conversation. But depending on how big of a role he has in the Odyssey, this is a real opportunity for Tom Holland to elevate his career. So I'm actually excited to see what Tom Holland does. Can't miss her. You see the cast. You see the casting. I mean, already when we're talking about Matt Damon, Tom Holland. You have the recognizable faces, and then you throw in Anne Hathaway. I am also of the belief, let me just check myself. Since I'm live, I can check it here. Can check the cast of the movie. Okay. She is going to be playing Penelope, who in the Odyssey is the character who he's coming home for, the Queen of Ithaca. Very interested to see how she does. I haven't seen a movie with her playing this type of role in a while.
Not even me.
You see this, you know what it is. It's always the same font for Christopher Nolan, just different colors. You see this, you know that you need to see the movie. Point blank simple. This will be a pop cultural moment you cannot miss. By the way, the seats are already selling out. The last, I don't even have a seat. I'm trying to figure out how I can get a seat to this. I want to see it in the IMAX, ideally, but that's going to be one of the hardest tickets to get. For Oppenheimer, it was the same thing. I missed the drops, and I had to sit in the very front row to watch the movie, but I had to see it on the biggest screen possible. The Odyssey will be the same thing. I need to see this in the IMAX. This was filmed, from my understanding, only on IMAX cameras also, by the way. So they want you to see it in the IMAX as well to get the full experience of Odysseus. I wonder who's doing the score for this movie. Let me see if it's who I think it is. If it's also, Ludwig Göransson, okay. So we do have, if you're not familiar, Ludwig did Oppenheimer, he did Tenet, he also did the Black Panther. So his resume speaks for himself. I was wondering if we were going to get someone else. I thought that we were potentially going to get maybe John Williams. Wonder who are the other composers that are in. Oh, Hans Zimmer is another name that I was considering there, but Ludwig is great. After what he did with Oppenheimer, I think it'll be perfect for the Odyssey. This summer, Oppenheimer was 2 summers ago now. This summer, Nolan knows when he's dropping. He's getting out the way of Avengers. He's getting out the way of Dune. You know what it is. This summer, come see this. Last time he was able to benefit from the Barbieheimer hype, but this summer, the Odyssey.
Promise me you will come back.
What if I can't?
That's the story right there. Can Odysseus make it home? I can't wait for the next trailer to come out for the Odyssey. This is a movie event that everyone who's into film is going to be watching. The only thing that could potentially dwarf that is when you get everyone who's into film and everyone who's into comics and everyone who has a pulse the way that the Avengers did. which brings us to Doomsday, where we have 3 trailers that I want to watch with you. As I pause on that one, we can start with the first one that was released. If you saw Avengers Endgame, there were 2 people that looked like were not coming back. Robert Downey Jr., Iron Man, who died in the movie, and this man right here. I'm now realizing I have to share this with you. Working out the kinks of my first stream here. We switch this up. Okay. You should be able to see what I was referring to now. Iron Man and this man right here. You already see the motorcycle. You already see the motorcycle. How is he getting back? He got in the time machine. You see the ring. They made sure to show us that he went, he got married. He had a family, it seemed like. But when the world needs a hero, when the world needs avenging, it is what it is. Welcome home, Cap. Welcome home. Look, I liked Steve Rogers' character. I actually think that the Captain America trilogy was the best trilogy that Marvel put out. So I by no means am here to say I don't want Captain America to return, but the Falcon kind of got thrown under the bus a little bit here. I thought that we were going to get a more compelling story, and they dropped the ball a little bit with Falcon becoming Captain America. We know that the general sentiment pop culturally is that Marvel has seriously dropped the ball since Avengers Endgame came out. They haven't been able to capture the same luster. The characters that they've chosen to embark down the path on just haven't caught flame like Endgame did. So they got on the phone and said, Robert Downey, our most well-known, compelling, charismatic favorite character, come back. He's coming back. And they did the same for Captain America. And Captain America has a child. He's leaving his child. Now that I'm looking at this and thinking about how they're even supposed to get this man from the past, if you saw the Fantastic Four movie, at the end of it, we saw that Dr. Doom, who we know is going to be Robert Downey Jr., he's the villain. I wonder if we're even getting the same Captain America Steve Rogers that we did in the Avengers movies. This could be a completely different version of him from a different multiverse. That's what happens when you play these multiverse games. I don't know if this is the same Captain America that was able to pick up Mjolnir. This might just be a dad with a Captain America suit. Who knows? That's still Cap, though. Even if that is the dad version of him, that's still Captain. So, listen, I know Marvel had to sort of come crawling back, but I'm sure Chris Evans is going to be compensated well for this. Man, I'm ready to see this. We've all had somewhat of a bad taste in our mouths from what Marvel's been putting out, but I'm ready to see. Please, Marvel, do not drop the ball with this one. Okay. You hear the iconic piano playing with the Avengers sound. We got Steve back, but that's not the end of it. There's a couple more characters that are joining the party. So that was Steve. Then they dropped another trailer for us. Mind you, some of these were leaking online. I had to make sure that I avoided them so I could come and potentially have this moment live on stream. Let me put this together. So I'm still getting the hang, sharing my screen with you all. Put this here. Boom. You should be able to see it now. Another guy who we didn't know what Marvel was doing with him. They somehow found a way to, I hate to say it, but they wasted an excellent Christian Bale performance with a subpar Thor movie. Thor, from 1 to 3, had a chance to make an argument for being the best Marvel trilogy. I want to say roughly. I still would say Captain America was above, but Thor had the level of hype, especially the first Thor movie. People were showing up. Chris Hemsworth was doing his thing. He was garnering some of that hype of being, one of the more fan favorite characters. So people were always excited to see Thor, especially when they did the movie that pulled from the Planet Hulk comics. We got to see him in the arena. But then they just made him too silly. That was really what went wrong with his character. So let's see how they want to bring him back. I thought that Chris Hemsworth might have put the hammer down for the final time after that movie.
Father, all my life, I have answered every call. To honor, duty, to war. But now fate has given me something I never sought. A child.
Another dad. Again, I have to ask the question, is this even the same Thor that we've seen in the movies? Is this Thor, or is this Thor from Multiverse 753? I don't know where they're going to go with this. As soon as they open the door on time travel and multiverse, I never know who's who. This person could be from that universe or that one. They have to make sure their writers were cooking and locked in for this story.
A life untouched by the storm. Lend me the strength of the old fathers, so that I may fight once more, defeat.
Wow, this looks like an aged Thor. I don't know if this is Chris Hemsworth aging or if it's the makeup. Now, if you guys are only familiar with the film version of Thor, the comic version is brutal. This guy was not a nice man in the comics. He was a god of rage. He committed atrocities like several other of these Greek gods or Norse mythology gods, I should say. He was not a nice man. He was someone who people feared in their heart of hearts. He was an extremely powerful character. I wonder if the backlash from maxing out the silliness of Thor will make them go the whole other direction. He might not crack a smile in this movie, now that I think about it. He's asking for the strength of his father to defeat this final enemy. He's a dad. He might be done with the games, and I would be very interested in that portrayal. Wow. you could glean a lot from a couple minutes of a teaser. Okay, Thor, defeat one more enemy.
One more enemy. And return home to her. Not as a warrior, but as warmth. To teach her not battle.
He doesn't even want to fight anymore after this. Let's not forget, Thor almost took out Thanos. This is not someone to be played with. If he was just a little bit more accurate, if he took a couple more swings in the batting cages, there might not have even been an Avengers Endgame. But now that he has a daughter, that dad strength kicks in, and he wants to win this battle so that there will be no more, so that his daughter never has to fight. Okay. Maybe Thor will be leading the Avengers. Steve Rogers, he seemed a little bit softened, the version we saw in that trailer, but Thor, okay, Thor, teach her not battle.
But stillness. The kind I never knew. Please, Father, heed my words.
All right. Already, that's better than the Captain America teaser. Or that was better than the Steve Rogers teaser. Thor, we're going to rank these as they come out. Thor, I'm number one. I want to see his portrayal. I'm excited to see how they do Thor. But I haven't seen this next one that I'm going to share with you. I especially saved this because I have no idea where they're going to take this story. But they teased this next teaser. I didn't expect this at all. When I saw this hit my timeline, I was like, wow, just in time for us to watch this on stream. Get ready for this.
Death comes for us all.
You know what it is. You know what it is. It's one letter. The X-Men, yes. The X-Men that have not crossed over into this universe other than a Wolverine cameo, other than Deadpool. Yes, the X-Men. This I am here for. The X-Men movies have been done very dirty because they were not able to leverage the same resources that their Marvel counterparts in the other studios were able to use. But as I'm just looking up, quick question, but yes, the School for the Gifted, it looks destroyed here, but there's an opportunity to make the X-Men cool again. It's been a while. The generation right now coming up doesn't even know of a time when the X-Men were cool, unfortunately.
That's all I know for sure. The question is...
Xavier's School for Gifted Youngsters. Is this the multiverse? The same one we've been seeing?
Are you prepared to die? The question is, who will you be when you close your eyes?
Professor X. Professor X. Professor X. He doesn't play games either. You got to really put together everyone for Doctor. We don't even know what Doctor Doom did. This might be like how they did Thanos, where we didn't even know what Thanos' intentions were. He just showed up and was strictly handling his business. He was just standing on business. He just showed up in Infinity War and did exactly what he said he was going to do, erase half of the population. Is Doctor Doom going to be moving like that? I guess we'll find out together. Magneto, a GOAT Marvel villain, Magneto. I might be Magneto, Thor. This is tough. Magneto is a great villain. If Magneto is here fighting Doctor Doom, as I'm going through these Marvel, please, I'm pleading with you from the Behold Pop Culture family, do not mess this up. We've been waiting a long time for this. Wow, Magneto. Now these, I have to say, they look pretty old. This doesn't look like someone that I'm going to feel very confident in protecting me if I'm going against Doctor Doom. Maybe they'll lead the Avengers. These look like they're in a state where they just are going to be, helping from the sidelines, strategizing. If Magneto starts going crazy, though, Thor might need to back up. Cyclops, okay. Is Hugh Jackman coming back for this? All right, Marvel, I'm on board. If it wasn't clear before, I am on board. Magneto, Professor X, Cyclops. Get Hugh Jackman back in here. Bring him back. I know he's doing other movies. Bring him back. Get Deadpool in here. Just bring everyone. Okay, Cyclops. That looks crazy. Hold on, I have to watch that again. Who is that in the background? Hold on, I have to get this. Who is this? Are these the Sentinels? Galactus? The X-Men suit looks good. The X-Men. Okay. You got me with this one. All right. Avengers Doomsday. Put the camera back on me. Avengers Doomsday, I'm on board. I am on board. Yes, this is what we were waiting to see. These teasers were excellent. And every single other one you want to drop, let us get hype. This movie comes out at the end of the year. I'm going to need to clear my calendar for this. This is the type of moment Behold Pop Culture was made for. Avengers movie, yes. The Odyssey, yes. Dune, you might have to move out the way too with the way Avengers is looking right now. They're supposed to release on the same day. I don't know about that one, Dune, but yes, this is what I'm excited for. This is how you start off streaming. We have an episode where we got to dive into one of the best acting performances of recent history with Marty Supreme. And then we got these 4 excellent trailers for these movies. Yes. Behold Pop Culture. I'm excited to be here. This is my first ever live stream, so I'm going to continue learning, working out the kinks, figuring out what the best cadence is. But if you're here for the beginning of the journey, thank you. I expect to be here for a long time. This is the next step for Behold Pop Culture. And if you have any feedback, let me know. Continuing to learn and iterate every single day. And with that, we've come to the end of today's stream, and I'll be talking to you tomorrow. This is Behold Pop Culture. My name is Messiah. I'm going by on YouTube and some socials by BPC Messiah, which stands for Behold Pop Culture. And I'll talk to you next time. I'm out.